All right. Hello, everybody. Let me just pull up the live stream so I can see your comments. My channel. And all right, so who do we got here? We have Tyler is here. Hello, Tyler. It's good to see you again. Hope that your father's doing well. Everyone in your house has COVID but you. Oh my gosh. Well, you know, you're still in my thoughts and prayers. Hopefully, you know, your family will be able to recover soon. KSG, or Nick, I should say. Hello, Nick. Mean Cat says I was here yesterday. Awesome. Daniel, how's it going? Gump Happens, hello. What is today, Wednesday? Yeah, today's Wednesday. Alright, so... who is... Okay, we got 15 people. Is the chat keeping up? It is, yeah. RMS Cunard, how's it going? Alright, let me go ahead and start heating up this water here. Hello, Ryan. So, y'all might have noticed that I have the train up and running again. That's because in the last live stream, everybody was asking about it. They were, you know, well, not everybody, maybe like 3 people, but still, everybody noticed, you know, and they were like, where's the train? Why isn't it running again? And so the reason is because the whole layout is under construction again. It's under the next phase of work. So that means like landscaping and stuff. So I just finished doing all the repairs to the tracks that needed to be done. The tracks were in really bad condition because basically the track work was damaged when I moved up to Portland 2 years ago, and then it's been in storage for 2 years, and then when I moved into this new apartment earlier this year, the track work got damaged again, especially the bridges got damaged again. You know, because I was moving everything up here to this apartment. So basically, to get the trains working for the previous live streams, I kind of just like did really quick, you know, quick fixes to get the thing running, but it wasn't by any means fully repaired. So when I started working on the water tower behind me, and I started doing work on repairing the bridges and stuff, it also meant having to re-glue all the track back down, and just doing a bunch of other work and stuff. So basically, all the track work is repaired. All the joints are re-soldered, everything like that. So it's functional again. But the next part of the landscaping will be very, very messy. So once again, the train will be down for quite a while. But until then, I don't have time to work on the layout. So until then, it's just going to run for now until I have the time and, you know, to work on the layout. So that's kind of bothering me. All right. Hold on, just going through everybody's comments. Hello, Ken. Hello, Teresa. Good afternoon, Doc. RMS Cunard. No, I haven't heard of the ocean liner Chuzan. Christian, how's it going? Teresa says, I'm driving into MTY burned town. Oh. I think you meant my burned town. Oh my gosh. Oh, well, I'm glad you're safe. Yeah, there's been some forest fires. I know you know, nearby in Oregon, because right now, like, if I look outside, it's really smoky outside. Not as bad as it was 2 years ago when literally I was being evacuated. But it is really smoky, and it has been kind of irritating my lungs. But, you know, there is some rain coming. Some, like, I think like 2 weeks at least worth of rain coming. So I'm hoping that will help to, you know, to extinguish the forest fires and things like that. Because usually fall time, you know, once the rain comes, it extinguishes all the fires, and then throughout the winter you have all the rain and snow and stuff. So I'm really hoping that things end up all right. KSG, thank you so much for the... I'm sorry, Nick, thank you so much for the donation. Stream time means donation time. You genuinely deserve it. Thank you so much. That is so nice of you. RMS Cunard says, how'd you get that poster of Mauretania? This is actually of Aquitania, and this was given to me by my friend Jason. So I think he said he was at like some kind of antique store or something like that, and he found it and he thought of me, so he got it. So that was really nice of him. I don't think, even my friend told me that he doesn't think it's a real, like, authentic antique, because it looks like a reprint, but it's still nice to have. I still like it. And you know, and Aquitania is one of the ocean liners that is on my top 10 favorite list. So, okay, so now we're gonna do some preheating here. Okay. Oh, right. I don't need that open yet. Okay. We'll let that kind of preheat for a little bit. Daniel says, hey Alex, do you think Queen Mary kinda has a soul? Oh, I know she has a soul. And many people would say so too, especially her last captain said that she's a ship with a heart and soul. Hey Mark, how's it going? Steve, you're back! Oh my gosh, you got your computer back up and running. Wow, it has been a while. Meme Cat says, can you still call me Mod Cat? I will try to remember, but just keep in mind, there are hundreds of people that comment on my channel and come to my live streams. They pop in and out, and everybody's always saying, oh, I changed my name, call me this, or oh, I know this is my username, but call me by my real name. And I already have difficulty with memory. I have schizophrenia, so memory is something really difficult for me. So I will try to remember to call you Modcat, but I cannot guarantee it. Ivan says, does that train run on batteries or electricity? So I don't know anything about model railroads. I do enjoy your videos about it, though. Interesting and always nice to learn something new. Yeah, so the train runs on electricity, but the electricity is coming from the rails. So it picks up the power from the rails. The rails are all electrified. I have them all hooked up and everything. They've all been soldered. So just like you would solder like parts on a circuit board, you would solder all the joints of the rails together, solder the wires to the rails, everything like that. So everything is electrically hooked up. It's not like a plug and play kind of thing. Like this actually took some actual like electrical know-how. So I do know a little bit about direct current circuitry. So I was able to wire the whole thing up and get it running. And then eventually, when there's buildings and things on the layout, those will also be lighted with little lamps and stuff like that. So all that circuitry will have to be done as well. So thankfully, I do know a bit about circuitry. All learned it in high school, by the way. Had a technology class in high school. Doc says, "Hi, Alex. I got some very bad news yesterday. Your streams and stories are such a comfort. Paying it forward a little while I can." Oh, Doc, I'm so sorry to hear that you're going through something unfortunate right now, but, you know, hopefully everything will turn out for the best. But thank you so much for the donation. And yeah, I hope that, that the live stream can, you know, kind of bring you some comfort. Valence and Friends Show says, "Ah, yes, tea time, my favorite time in the hour." Yes, absolutely. Nick donated again. Oh my gosh, thank you. Last one for today because I gotta go soon. I have a busy day coming up. Oh, okay, well, good luck. And thank you so much. Tyler said the last time Rancho Cucamonga, my former hometown, was covered in smoke, it almost contaminated my Dr. Pepper. Oh, wow. Yeah. Christian says, "What do you think is going to happen to Titanic in the next 50 years? You know, I think it'll just slowly kind of turn into a rust stain at the bottom of the Atlantic. I don't think anything's going to happen to it. I don't think they're going to pull it up or anything like that. Yeah, it's going to slowly decay." Moonzer says, "Hey Alex, I'm 11 and I have a question. Was the SS United States bigger than the RMS Queen Elizabeth? Because I was watching a video and the Queen Elizabeth was way bigger than the Queen Mary." The Queen Elizabeth... So to answer your first question, SS United States was definitely smaller than the Queen Elizabeth. It was about, I want to say, close to, if not 100 feet shorter than Queen Elizabeth. It was narrower than Queen Elizabeth. They say that SS United States had 12 decks or something like that, maybe 10 decks. I forget. But Queen Elizabeth had 12 decks, just like Queen Mary. Actually, you know what? I was counting the decks on Queen Elizabeth, and I got to 13. So, I don't know. Steve, if you're in the chat, could you explain that? Because I saw, like, on Queen Mary, they have Sun Deck, right? And even though when you go inside, you have to go up a few steps, that's considered part of Sun Deck. And then above that is the Sports Deck, and then that's the last passenger deck on the Queen Mary. But on Queen Elizabeth, they have, like, Sun Deck, and then they have an intermediate deck, and then they have a sports deck all the way on top. And that, I was like, did that add an extra deck to the ship? Like, that was something I discovered the other day, and that really threw me off. But yes, tonnage-wise, the Queen Elizabeth was far larger than SS United States. Queen Elizabeth and Queen Mary were very similar in size. I wouldn't say, like, far larger or way bigger. They were very similar in size. It's just that Queen Elizabeth had an extra, I believe it was an extra 2,000 or 3,000 tons, gross register tons. So it's not weight, it's in terms of volume. So something along those lines. I don't remember the exact numbers in my head. I know Queen Mary was 31,800. Queen Elizabeth was 33,900, if I'm remembering correctly. Ryan says, "Why do you prefer RMS Mauretania over RMS Aquitania?" I think on the outside, Mauretania looks a lot nicer than Aquitania. On the inside, they're both just as beautiful, but I would say on the outside, Mauretania is, you know, it gets that bump ahead of Aquitania because it just looks nicer. So yeah, that's the reason why. Erickson says, "Found your channel through that Spruce Goose video, and now I'm here tuning in to the live streams. Keep up the good work." Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm glad you liked the Spruce Goose video. Lori says, "Alex, Magic Bands is coming out next week. Next week to non-magic key holders." Oh, I see. And that's for the Disneyland in California? Okay. Daniel says, "Hey, Alex, you think Queen Mary misses and mourns Queen Elizabeth?" No, I mean, I don't consider them sentient things, you know. They're ships, they're objects, you know. There's, you know, I don't think that they can think, you know. But Tyler says, Alex, while I was away, in a manner of speaking, I watched Snow White and Pinocchio for the first time in 20 years. Really? Wow. Yeah, those are two of my favorite those are like two of my favorite Disney classic films. Another classic film I love is Alice in Wonderland. That one makes me laugh. It's just constant laughter all the way through. I don't know why, but it still makes me laugh. It's just so good. I think these are already nice and warm. So... RMS Cunard. Interesting. Erickson says, is it safe to touch the rails with your hands? Absolutely. Very, very safe. If I'm being totally honest, I don't know why it's safe to touch the rails with my hands. Because, you know, I used to work on, I used to be not a handyman, but a maintenance person. And I once electrocuted myself by switching out a power socket. Because it wasn't functional, so I was switching it out. And I electrocuted myself with a full, like, something like 120 volts or something like that. Yeah, and that was not pleasant. But for some reason... You can touch the rails and not get electrocuted here. And I mean, it wouldn't be like a major electrocution. I think the most electricity this thing puts out is about 12 volts, which is, you know, like a large battery. But you know, nevertheless, if you've ever shocked yourself on a car battery, that's 12 volts is it is a lot. But yeah, for some reason you can touch the rails and it won't hurt you. It's not like a safety feature or anything. There's just something about the way electricity works. So, yeah. The one thing I wouldn't do, though, is drop something metal, especially something conductive, across the tracks. Because you can short-circuit the thing. Now, thankfully, the control mechanism, which you can't see, but if you look at the camera view of the bridge... It's actually just beneath the camera's view. If I were to tilt the camera down, you could see the control mechanism. That thing has a special, like, switch in it that allows it so if it detects a short circuit, it automatically shuts off. It's got a little circuit breaker in it. So that way you don't damage your trains, because they are really expensive. Very, very expensive. They are not toys at all. Toys do not cost, you know, $400 for like a little locomotive. So obviously you don't want them to be short-circuited. So they do have a circuit breaker. But nevertheless, you don't want to take that risk. This is the tough part, is seeing where the top of the thing is. Okay. So, because today is a Lady Grey tea, it's a really delicate tea, and you don't want to immediately immerse it into the boiling water, so I'm going to give it like a minute or two to cool down for a few degrees. Teresa says, "Hi Alex, have you heard Queen Mary's going to open this October?" So that was not an official, like, thing. So the city did not officially announce an opening date. They were saying that they were trying to get the ship open by October. But the thing is we're almost, you know, we're like already halfway through October. And they're still doing a lot of work on the ship, so I don't think it's going to happen this month. It might open in November, but the city has not yet announced an official reopening date for the ship. But when they do plan to have like kind of like a little celebration at the ship or something. So So they will be sure to announce it ahead of time, but yeah. Ryan says, my girlfriend just broke up with me, actually was crying for 5 minutes, but we are still friends since we are both young. Still hurts my heart. Yeah, you know, young love, you know. I know what it's like. Yeah. I don't have any comforting words for you, I'm sorry. I mean, all I can say is that time, you know, heals all wounds. But yeah, I've never been very good at comforting people. So, but yeah, I do feel for you, because I know what that feels like. RMS Cunard says, do you know any modifications Long Beach made to Queen Mary? Yeah, so they did, well, okay, so they're still working on it. So I can't say, like, the term, like, completed, but they're still working on it. They are currently building up 2 of the watertight bulkheads, because a computer simulation showed them that 2 bulkheads need to be rebuilt in order to keep the ship safe in case there was a major leak, which, let me tell you, like, right now, that will not happen. It won't leak. Let's see, in terms of modifications, they're also adding 11 brand new bilge pumps and water intrusion alarms. They are installing a brand new emergency backup generator. The ship has a room all the way in the aft section on B deck that houses it used to house the original backup generators for the ship. They were kerosene generators. But anyway, when they came to Long Beach, they installed a diesel backup generator, and now they are getting a new diesel backup generator. And in terms of modifications, that's it. The ship is getting a bunch of other repairs, a lot of aesthetic repairs, a lot of things like that, you know, but there are no, like, modifications necessarily. It's just repairs. So, but a lot of stuff is going on, you know. There's, right at this minute, right as we speak, they are emptying out all the ballast tanks. You guys have probably heard the, you know, the fact that the Queen Mary's bottom-most ballast tanks, there's a lot of ballast tanks all the way along the edges and the bottom, but the bottom ballast tanks, currently, they're pumping out each one by one. They were filled with mud. The mud is to ballast the tank, ballast the ship to keep it floating upright. So, because they removed all the boilers and a lot of the engineering spaces, that made the ship lighter when it came to, you know, when it was opened in Long Beach, made the ship lighter. So they filled the ballast tanks with mud to weigh down the ship and keep it upright. It still floats, but it's to ballast the ship again, because I don't want people to think that the ship is sitting on the bottom. It is not. It is floating. But they are emptying out one ballast tank at a time, pumping out the mud, and then they are doing inspections of the ballast tanks to make sure that there's no corrosion, there's no leaks. As far as I've heard, no signs of corrosion or leaks. So that is really good news, because there are a lot of naysayers out there that are like, oh, well, when you empty those ballast tanks, you're going to see just how damaged the ship is. I've always been saying the ship is not that bad. I know it looks terrible to the naked eye. You know, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's dirty and horrible. You know, but the metal underneath is perfectly fine. You know, so they're emptying out one at a time the ballast tanks, and they're checking them, and so far they haven't found any issues. Again, the outside of the hull, they took divers down there. They tested the whole ship all the way down the length with ultrasound to see the condition of the hull and the thickness of the hull plates. The thickness is still an average of 1 inch, which is very good because the ship was manufactured with 1 1/4 inch steel. So you know, everything is going hunky-dory. You know, thank goodness. The ship is still in very good shape despite being, in some areas, almost 90 years old. So, actually, a little over 90 years old, actually, 92. Meme Cat says, what's the difference between knots and miles an hour? I don't know that there's like a formula. But I'm not good at math, so I can't tell you the formula. But you can easily check it on Google. Just type in like knots to miles per hour, and you can punch in any number you want, and it'll calculate it for you. But yeah, it's a formula, and I'm not good with math, so. Okay, this should be ready for the tea. Tea only needs to go in for about 3 minutes, because this is a very light tea. So 4:29, maybe 4:30. Teresa says, is the sub next to the Queen Mary sinking? No, it's not sinking. It did take on water, but it's not actively sinking. So it's got watertight bulkheads and stuff like that, just like a ship does. So even if one compartment gets flooded, the whole thing shouldn't flood. I say shouldn't, but we don't know yet. We'll see how that goes. But it does have water in it, not all through it, just a certain area. But it's still floating, so it's not actively sinking. And hopefully it doesn't. They need to remove it before it does, because I don't want it to damage the Queen Mary. Mateo is here. How's it going, Mateo? Hey, Jimmy. Jagodi says, what's your thoughts on the second Mauretania? I know very little about it. I've seen very few pictures of it. I don't have an opinion yet. Cunard says, why did Germany give their ships masculine names? A lot of their ships were named after their kings. So that is a major reason why. Just like how Cunard started naming some of their ships after, their queens, after Britain's queens. So, it's not all ships have a female name. Not all ships have a, neutral name. Some of them have, male names. So it's not unusual. That's all I'm trying to say. It's not unusual. It's actually pretty normal. Octarian says, hey Alex, do you think Queen Mary will be scrapped in the future? All ships eventually will be scrapped. Or they'll be left to sink. Or they'll just be abandoned, maybe because, I don't know, we don't know yet, but if the world ends, it'll be abandoned. But there's always an end to everything. There's a beginning and an end for everything. The question is when. Will the Queen Mary be scrapped in the near future? No, absolutely not. She earns the city and the county way too much money for them to just let her go. Yeah, everybody has these, all these naysayers, they have these weird little dreams of oh, they're gonna scrap it, yay. And I'm like, fat chance, the ship earns them way too much money. Someone today commented on my channel, the ship is a money pit. I'm like, the ship doesn't fit the definition of a money pit, because it actually earns more money than it consumes, than it the expenses take up. So it's not a money pit. It's a money generator, a huge money generator, which is why the city does not want to get rid of it. But yes, eventually something will happen to the ship. Eventually, who knows? Maybe 100 years from now, maybe 50 years from now, maybe 500 years from now, the ship will eventually be either sunk, scrapped, or abandoned to the point where maybe it just rots in place. I don't know, but it really depends on the world events, so but we'll see. Oh, maybe I won't live that long, I don't know. But let's see. Daniel says, I don't know why, but old Disney movies creep me out. Interesting. Chris says, what were your thoughts on Clive Palmer's Titanic 2 project that failed? Various people have come forward since I was a little child. Since the early 1990s, people have been coming forward saying, I'm going to build the next operable Titanic. And it's never happened. And so when Clive Palmer announced his Titanic 2 decades ago, I was just like, it's not going to happen. You know, like, there are so many reasons why that's a bad idea. You know, like, a lot of reasons. I knew nobody was going to finance it, and it turned out I was right. Nobody financed it. So, you know, it's, yeah. I think it was very offensive. I think the idea of sailing a cruise ship that looks like Titanic, carries Titanic's name, and does it for the sake of nostalgia, I think that is offensive. Because, you know, a lot of people died on that, you know? Like, a lot of people. The Titanic is famous for its tragedy. You know, if it wasn't for the tragedy, the ship would nobody would even really know what it is today. It's the same thing when you ask someone off the street, do you know what the first RMS Oceanic was? And they're like, what is an Oceanic? You know, like, nobody knows. The same thing would happen with, you know, with Titanic. Nobody would have ever known had the ship never sank. And so when people try to tell me, oh, but the Titanic 2 was a good idea because it, you know, it'll bring attention to the disaster or whatever, I'm like, no, it's just an excuse for people to have a little fun and playtime, you know, at the expense of a tragedy, you know. So yeah, I never liked it, and I knew nobody would finance it. Alrighty. Wow, it really smells like smoke outside. Oh, at the risk of jinxing myself, I've noticed that the locomotive has not squeaked at all. I didn't oil it before the live stream. I forgot to. But it's not squeaking. And it probably will start squeaking now that I mentioned it. Ivan Joseph says Pirates of the Caribbean or Harry Potter? Harry Potter. Doc says, Alex, the Victoria and Albert Museum has a wonderful Alice in Wonderland exhibit that you can check out. Parts of online, and it includes some Disney stuff too. I think you'd enjoy it. Yeah, parts of, so it's available online. I can see it online. I'll have to check it out when I have time. Ozzy says, how is Alex weather today? No burning your fingers today? No burning my fingers today because today was a slightly cooler tea, so it doesn't require full-on boiling water. The weather is okay. It's a decent temperature, but it's very smoky. There's lots of smoke in the air. Doc says, was there a film theater or performance stage on the Queen Mary? Both. So in the first class main lounge, they have a stage there that was used for both orchestra band performances, as well as it could be converted into a cinema. So they would have like a screen, you know, come down, and then they could play movies on it. But also in third class, they had a cinema there as well. It was really more of a multi-purpose room that could convert to a small cinema. And then in the later years of Queen Mary's life, the first class received a specifically designated cinema. So right where the restaurants, the Chelsea Chowder House is, their kitchen for that restaurant used to be a really large cinema where people could sit. It was really long. It was very narrow and long. And then the screen was, by today's standards, small. But yeah. So yeah, cinema was something that they did often. And then in second class, the second class main lounge had a had a stage as well, a small stage for orchestra bands, and they also would use that stage as a cinema as well, so the screen could come down and they could play movies. So yeah. RMS Cunard says, have you heard of New Amsterdam? Yes, I have. Kobe says, did you get new train cars or is it just me? No new train cars. That is an expense I do not have the money for at the time. No, it's all the same train cars. I have two different trains. I have a passenger train and then I have the freight train. And the freight train is the one that's running around the tracks right now. So I have two different trains. But I will likely not buy any other train cars at all. So there's very likely no reason to. Because it's a very small layout, so there's really no room for more cars anyway. So, but yeah. Steve says it's the amperage is very low, so you don't electrocute yourself on the rails. Interesting. Daniel says, if Long Beach does a celebration for Queen Mary, would you go? Would I go? Yes. Will I go? That's a whole other issue. Because originally, they were really hoping the ship would reopen in October. But I don't think that's going to happen. We're already halfway through the month, you know. But anyway, it's too late for me now. Because if I was going to go to the opening, it was going to be for the October opening. But now I don't have a way to get down there, and I don't have a way to get back up. So it's not going to happen this year. So so if the ship opens, I will unfortunately not be able to get down to Orange County. Not Orange County, but Los Angeles. I call it Orange County because that's where I grew up. But the LA area, I will not be able to get down to the LA area. I will not be able to see the Queen Mary this year. And I don't know when next year. So, unfortunately, you know, I was really bummed out by that because I was really looking forward to being there for the ship's opening. But, you know, things just didn't work out, and I've lost my window of time, so now I can't get down there. So, let's see. Ryan says, well, comforting words won't fit because these streams fit themselves. Okay. Daniel Ramirez says, Alex, what will happen when Queen Mary turns 100? I have no clue because, you know, like I said in the last stream, that the city doesn't plan that far ahead. So, you know, they haven't even planned, you know, when the ship turns 90. So, much less what they're going to do for 100. So, yeah. They haven't even released plans for what they're going to do for the reopening of the ship. So, yeah, there's no plans for the 100th yet. Christian says, why would Cunard sail Queen Mary to Long Beach? That was Cunard's flagship. Christian, that's because they were going to put a new flagship in place. The new flagship was going to be the QE2. So the QE2 was going to be put in service in 1969. So yeah, that's why they sold the Queen Mary, is because they already had a new flagship coming in. Geez, Meme Cat was really upset over the fact that I couldn't remember to call them Mod Cat. Folks, let me just reiterate again. You know, I have difficulty with my memory. And everybody's always saying, oh, I changed my username, so call me this. Or, oh, I know this is my username, but this is my real name, call me that. Like, I get that every day. I can't remember people's names. I call it by what I see in the chat. So, yeah. Captain Happy says, do you know if the recent Queen Mary renovations included exterior paint? If so, it's been hot in Long Beach, 88 degrees right now. That may be the reason for delay in reopening her. Yeah, so repainting is part of the plan, and yes, I am aware that part of the delay is because they're waiting for cooler weather. That for sure is part of the plan. RMS Cunard says, do you think Queen Elizabeth is overrated? No. That's a weird question to ask. Ryan, thank you so much for the compliment. Yeah, Steve is right. The hull of the Queen Mary will be touched up. So I should have said that, but I assumed that everybody knew what I meant. But yeah, it will be touched up, but not be repainted fully. So that is just millions and millions of dollars. I think the last time they repainted the ship, it was $2.3 million to repaint the whole thing. So yeah, it's not going to get a whole repaint. That's good tea. Doc says, Alex, thank you so much for always answering my art entertainment-based questions about Queen Mary. You're welcome. I do my best. Greg says, that was a very good video explaining why Cunard would not want the Queen Mary back yesterday, Alex. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Yeah, this Friday is a different type of video altogether. I think you guys will like it. It's called The Vampires of the Ursuline Convent. So it's about the Ursuline Convent in New Orleans and the mysterious story about how vampires were housed in the convent. So it'll be an interesting little video. I think you guys will really like it. It's got some history, but it's also got some legends and stuff like that. So that's this Friday. RMS Cunard says, do you think Queen Mary's first concept was ugly with a clipper stern? Ugly isn't the word. I wouldn't say ugly. I prefer her with the cruiser stern. Because she just looks more, 1930s that way. But not ugly. I mean, I've seen the concept and it didn't look bad. Queen Elizabeth was given the honor of flagship in 1947. That kind of upsets me to hear that. Ryan, to answer your question, I always think the Queen Mary is pretty, but she does not look her best. She is in dire need of lots of exterior and interior restoration. So I don't want to mislead people by making them think like, oh, the Queen Mary's fine. She doesn't need a touch-up or anything. She's beautiful the way she is. Like, no, by no means. She is in very, very bad condition in terms of her appearance and the functionality of her exteriors. So those all need to be really repaired as soon as possible. Do I think that removing her lifeboats makes her ugly? No. It's weird because some ocean liner fans do think that. They were really upset when the lifeboats were removed. They said, oh, now she looks terrible. Now I can never see her again and see how beautiful she is. And I'm like, they're just lifeboats. You know, like, yeah, the ship looks great with lifeboats. But, like, there are very few ocean liners left that still have all their lifeboats. You know, it was a miracle that for 55 years she still had her lifeboats, you know. So yeah, I don't think that the removal of her lifeboats makes her any less beautiful. But yeah, her exteriors do need a lot of work. She needs a lot of renovation on the exteriors, especially the interiors too. But you know, the first thing you see is the exterior. RMS Cunard says, why did Cunard not go for such a modern style as Normandy? I like Queen Mary the way she is. But that's the thing. Queen Mary was a modern style. All her interiors were 100% modern. Just because Normandy looks different doesn't mean that the Queen Mary was any less modern on the interior. And there is also something people need to know, which is that Art Deco, the style, changed by country. So French Art Deco was very different than British Art Deco. Queen Mary was 100% most modern British Art Deco. Normandy was 100% most modern French Art Deco. So that's why they look so different. But they were, you know, Queen Mary was not any less modern than Normandy just because she looks different. She was very modern. Teresa says, would you rather go on Normandy or a plane? Normandy, of course. I hate planes. Octarian says, how would you react if Cunard renovated the Queen Mary 2? Negatively. I think Queen Mary 2 looks really good. If they removed all her Art Deco interiors and made them bright white sterile hospital interiors like they did with the Queen Anne, I'd be very, very upset. Gino DeSantis says, when Queen Mary was sold, was certain artwork removed that was not sold with the ship? As far as my understanding, the ship was sold as is. So all the artwork she had was what went with her. And they did value the artwork too. So the city of Long Beach actually went through the effort to appraise the artwork to figure out how much that would cost and combine it with the cost of the ship. Doc says, were the works of art and other valuables removed from Queen Mary when she was used for the war? Were they put back or housed somewhere currently? I'm so curious about the history of all the paintings. Well, I have a video about Queen Mary's war service, and it describes all that in the first episode of the... So I have it's three videos. It's a 3-part series. But the first episode describes all of that for you. So I would highly suggest it. It's called... I think it's called like Queen Mary during World War II or something like that. I have so many videos now, I can't remember all their names. But it is about Queen Mary during World War II, and it's in my Queen Mary documentary playlist. And it describes in there that that any of the artwork that could be removed, stuff that could be picked up and removed, was removed and put in storage temporarily for the war. And then any artwork that could not be removed was left in place. A lot of the artworks were covered with protective layers of either leather or padding of some kind. Some of the artworks were not covered, such as the one in the veranda grill was not covered, and that one actually famously got damaged because it was used as a tacking board for the for the officers on the ship. They would kind of plan out, you know, things. They planned out things of war, and they used it as a tacking board. The artist Doris Zinkaisen had to come back after the war and repaint it because it was unusable. But yeah, anything that could be picked up by hand was removed from the ship and then put in storage. Anything that wasn't was left in place, and some of it was protected, some of it wasn't. And then when the war was over, everything was put back on the ship. Every last thing was put back on the ship. So hey, Jimmy. Yeah, Mateo, I agree. In terms of historic preservation, the removal of the lifeboats is unfortunate, but the effect on the aesthetics of the ship is negligible. Yeah, I agree. Christian says, why was the Queen Mary lifeboats crushed up? That's defacing history of those old boats. Oh, gosh. I've had to retell this story many times, but basically, I'm going to try to really summarize it because I tell this story all the time. I get really tired of telling it. But basically, the lifeboats, their weight was having a negative effect on the structure of the Queen Mary. So they removed the lifeboats to preserve the ship, to prevent any more damage from happening than was already done. The lifeboats were also in very, 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 very bad condition. I mean, very bad. Some of them didn't even have a bottom. They were just rotted all the way through. And then what they did was they tacked up some boards on the bottom and painted it to look like it was part of the hull. So some people think like, oh, the lifeboats were in perfect condition. I didn't see a single hole in them. It's like, that's because the whole bottom was given like fiberglass to make it look like there was no hole. But yeah, they were completely rotted through, most of them. And they were in danger of collapsing onto people. So that was the other issue. So they removed them from the ship. You know, me and Steve and people from QMI Restore the Queen, you know, we were all there trying to get Long Beach to preserve the lifeboats. You know, the QMI had put in efforts to try to offer that we would raise money to restore all the lifeboats and their davits and put the lifeboats back up on the davits. All those efforts that we had done did not amount to anything. We were not allowed to help in any way. And then, you know, Steve, you know, the guy in the chat, Blue Ribbon Productions, you know, he sent a letter to the city of Long Beach asking them, you know, to at least, you know, preserve some of the lifeboats. And in fact, they did. They, besides the 2 lifeboats on the ship and the 1 on the dock, they also saved 5 others from being destroyed. And those, I think, are somewhere on city property waiting for one day to be preserved. But yeah, so the ones that could not be preserved were destroyed. And the reason why they were not just given away is because supposedly they all had lead paint on them, which is kind of like a liability. So the city did do a bidding process. So the lifeboats technically were being given away free of charge, but the bidding process required that you had to have all these plans and everything for what you would do with the lifeboats, how you would get them out of there, how you would transport them, all the permits, everything had to be ready. You know, how the lifeboats would be restored, where would they be, how would they be maintained. You had to have like a full plan, everything laid out. That is a process that usually takes museums and private companies anywhere from 6 months to a year to put together. Well, Long Beach gave everybody 60 days. 60 days was not nearly enough. Again, the minimum is 6 months. So 60 days was not nearly enough. And so because of that, nobody could come up with a bidding plan that satisfied Long Beach's requirements. They couldn't just give the lifeboats away just like willy-nilly. There is a certain amount of responsibility the city has to take because they were covered in lead. And it wasn't as simple as just, oh, well, here's a liability release, which was something you did have to sign anyway. But it was a very complicated process. So unfortunately, there just wasn't enough time. Nobody could put forward a plan fast enough. Because again, it usually takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months to put together a plan like that. So that's why. As you can see, it's a very long story. And that was the short version of the story. RMS Cunard says, I heard Urban Commons, the past leaseholder, wanted to renovate and give Queen Mary new modern interiors. I think it's such a shame. That's not necessarily true. I mean, I've never heard that. But the other thing, too, is that they never did. And they really couldn't, because the ship is a historical landmark. They do have certain criteria to meet. They wouldn't be able to replace certain things on the ship without finding exact replicas of it. So yeah, that I don't know where you heard that, but I don't think that the person that told you or the magazine or newspaper had correctly stated it, because they couldn't have done that, and they never did anyway. So there was really no worry of it. Corey says, what is the biggest room on the Queen Mary? That would be the first class restaurant on our deck. The first class restaurant stretches a length of 145 feet and a width of 118 feet, which makes it the full width of the ship itself. And it was large enough to house not only Cunard's first ever transatlantic steamship, the RMS Britannia, but it was also, in addition to that, able to house Christopher Columbus's fleet of ships. So, pretty big room. Yeah. Oh, okay. So Steve is mentioning that for the question that Doc had about, like, if any artwork was kept or moved off the ship or something when it was being sold, he had answered that the marble medallion of Queen Mary was retained by the royal family, and a mold was made from the medallion, and 2 plaster replicas were made. So the one that's on the ship today, the marble medallion that's on the ship today above the first class grand staircase, is a plaster replica. That was something I had forgot about. Corey says, what was the worst event on the Queen Mary when it was in service? The worst event was probably its collision with HMS Curacao. That happened, I don't remember the year off the top of my head, but it happened during World War II, and the ship was coming in and being escorted into Scotland, but it accidentally collided with its escort ship and sliced the escort ship in half, killing about a little over 300 men on the Curacao. Very, very tragic event. And yeah, that is the worst event in the ship's history. You can learn about it in episode 2 of my 3-part series about the Queen Mary's years in World War II. Kobe says, what wine bottle was used to launch the RMS Queen Mary? Oh gosh, these are very specific questions, you guys. You're really testing my ability to retain memory. If I recall correctly, it was a Scottish wine. I don't know if it was a sparkling wine. It might have been a sparkling wine, but it was a Scottish wine. But I don't remember exactly what it was. I have it in a book, but I don't remember off the top of my head. All right. RMS Cunard, well, RMS Cunard says, I like when you said in your World War II video, Queen Mary didn't slice ships with her bow. No, that's not necessarily what I said. I said she didn't slice enemy ships with her bow. She did slice the HMS Curacao, which was an ally ship. But I just wanted to make that distinction because I don't want people to think like I contradicted myself. Because I said she didn't slice enemy ships with her bow. And I was directly referencing the RMS Olympic in World War I had gone and struck down a enemy U-boat by literally slicing through it with the bow. So that's kind of what I was referencing. Oh, it was Australian sparkling white wine. Okay, so it wasn't Scottish wine, it was Australian sparkling white wine. Captain Happy, it was part of the original design of the Queen Mary. Doc says, I realized I may have asked a question by mistake. Is Chapter 4 already out of the narrated Queen Mary book? It's not out yet. I haven't had time to do that. I've been working on other videos for the channel. Mateo says, someday you'll end up being forced to make a video just about the foods of Queen Mary. Forced? No, I do plan to make a video about it, but it's actually been part of my plan eventually. I've just never figured out how to do it. Like, how do you make a video about that, you know? Jeffrey Charles says, hey Alex, how hard do you think it is now for someone to start a new YouTube channel and get a decent following? It depends on the subject that the person plans to cover on their YouTube channel, but generally speaking, it is nearly impossible. Because a lot of the most popular YouTubers, and again, this is a generalization because some subjects are just more popular than others. But generally speaking, a lot of the popular YouTubers, they started their channels, you know, way back when there wasn't as many YouTube channels on YouTube. And there was a, you know, definitely a desire for people to watch YouTube videos. As well as back then, this was before the pandemic. So back then, the world is a little bit different. People were all working and stuff like that, and so people didn't really have time for YouTube. They didn't really see YouTube as something serious. But during the pandemic, people got to see just how serious YouTube was. I mean, during the pandemic, I went from relying on a brick and mortar business to relying on my YouTube channel for my income. So that's how serious being a YouTuber can be. It's a whole job. So and people started to realize that. They realized it wasn't just a place to fiddle around. Like, you could actually like do something you love by making content for people. And the interesting thing about the entertainment business is that everybody watches entertainment, whether or not you make it. You know, I make entertainment for you guys, but I also watch a lot of it for myself, you know. So so it's interesting because it is one of those businesses where it kind of feeds itself, you know. But it is really difficult to start a YouTube channel these days, because now that everybody's kind of seen how YouTube can be, everybody started YouTube channels. And it just flooded all the nooks and crannies of YouTube. Everybody covering every single topic you can think of in the last 2 years. And some people in the last 2 years have been able to make a very decent following. I will tell you right now, though, and some people might think this is ridiculous, but it's totally true. You might see like 2 YouTubers. One does a really, really good job at what they do. The other does a decent job at what they do. But the decent person just might have way more viewers. They might have hundreds of thousands of viewers, as opposed to the tens of thousands of this YouTuber. And the reason is because your looks also determine how popular you are. I have noticed that on YouTube. There's YouTubers that I've seen that are very similar. Don't ask me to name them because I'm not going to put people on the spot. But there are YouTubers that produce very similar content, and the prettier ones are the ones that get the most views. Not just women, but men too. And you know, it's, you know. So I often wonder, I'm like, you know, if I was like a supermodel, I wonder how popular my channel would be. But yeah, so it is really difficult, you know. I've had people, you know, my friends and family say, oh, I am going to start a YouTube channel. I'm like, you know, good luck, because it took me 4 years just to get enough of a following that I could, you know, support myself, and then another 2 years to be fully supported by YouTube. So it was a total of 6 years to get to where I am, and I've got 35,000 subscribers, or maybe not even 35. I think it's like 33, but 33,000 subscribers. And in terms of YouTube, that's not very much, you know. So, and it's been a very long and difficult road on this channel. So, it's very, very difficult. Most YouTubers who start YouTube, they end up just giving up in the first couple months. Sometimes they give up after a year. And I've seen some really great YouTube channels where I'm like, oh, this is great content. I hope they keep producing more. And then after a year, they realize that like they've run out of things to do. And so they try to do something else, and then that kills their channel because people are used to them doing like one particular thing. That almost happened to my channel, except, so like my channel was all Disney history. And I knew that if my channel was really popular and I started changing it to like other stuff, it would kill the channel. But the thing was, is in 2020, all my Disney content was dying anyway. So I was like, look, the channel's gonna die either way. If I don't try to like change what I do and put different types of videos out, you know, it's not gonna succeed. So, so yeah, thankfully, putting out other content besides Disney content was what saved the channel ultimately. So I would say it definitely takes someone who can be creative, who knows how to like overcome obstacles and stuff like that. YouTube is like a never-ending thing. I can't even tell you like how difficult it is too. It might seem simple, like, oh, this guy makes videos and posts them and gets money. It's really not that simple. I get people threatening me with lawsuits. I get people threatening my life. You know, I get people who get mad over simple things like, oh, I don't like how you made that video thumbnail. That is, you know, it's clickbait. Or someone goes like, oh, I don't like the way you sound. You sound like, you know, too high pitched or whatever. I can't even tell you, like, it is the most scrutiny you've ever gotten. And I went to, like, culinary school. I had a lot of, I've been, chastised and, and yelled at and stuff like that in culinary school. But let me tell you, it's much worse for YouTube because you're producing something that is for free to people and they come back and criticize you. It is difficult. At least in a restaurant, when people criticize you, it's more accepting because you realize that they're paying for what you're giving them. So if they're not happy, then you really, really want to make them happy. But I give people stuff for free, and they're very, very critical about it. Thankfully, though, there are a lot of people, like all of you guys, who show up to these tea times that are really, really nice. And that is one of the reasons why I do these tea time live streams, is because I can talk to all the nice people of all the, like, stuff I have to deal with outside. A lot of nice people, Yeah, there was a journalist from Scotland that recently got on my case, and he's like, I'm gonna sue you. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? And he could not tell me for the life of me, like, what I did to violate, like, his rights. And he is a somewhat well-known journalist in Scotland, like, really well-known in Scotland. I was just like, what did I do? And he couldn't tell me, and eventually I was able to show him I didn't do anything that violated, like, any laws or anything. So I'm like, it's just so weird. So weird. But, Ken, thank you so much for the donation. No questions today. Here's some dough, though. Thank you so much. Let's try to get back to the comments. Do you have any Queen Mary coin? In the ship, you can get a penny and turn the handle and make the image of the ship on it. No, I didn't do that on the Queen Mary. Cunard says, I heard London is beautiful. I'd like to go someday. Yeah, me too. Teresa Roboyle says, when did Queen Mary win the Blue Ribbon? She won it twice, but the second time was in 1938. Kobe says, since the menus on the Queen Mary changed every crossing, I think it might be hard to do that. Well, that's not the thing I'm concerned about when it comes to doing a video about the food on the Queen Mary. Because, you can easily generalize and say, well, this is the kind of thing you would get on the Queen Mary. The problem I have is, what do I put? There's no photographs or images of the food that was served on the Queen Mary, at least not to any collection I've seen. There's no images of the foods that they even served on the Queen Mary. Like if they said, oh, we're serving this, this, and that, there's no images from similar restaurants of the era that have that dish. So how do you know what it looked like, I think in some cases Titanic's subject is easy because at least the Titanic is so well researched that, if you want to replicate the food that they served on the ship, it would probably be somewhat easy to find someone who's replicated it already. But on Queen Mary, I wouldn't even know where to start. So the reason why I haven't made a video on it yet is because what do I show? What do I put? What do I say? It's not easy. Gump says, what editing software do you use for your videos and streams? Videos and streams are two separate things. So for the videos, I edit them with Premiere Pro. And for the streams, I do that with OBS. Hey, Malibu Company. I am good. How about you? RMS Cunard says, I think Urban Commons had a good idea for attracting people to Queen Mary by turning the parking lot into 5-star hotels and shopping centers. Yeah, they did, but that's just what I call like a Band-Aid over the problem. So yeah, you might build like a shopping center, and yeah, that will attract people to the ship. But that doesn't resolve the initial problem with the ship in the first place, which is that people don't think that there's a reason to go to the ship. So, if the city of Long Beach, for some reason, came to me and said, should we build this development next to the Queen Mary, Alex? I would say no. First thing you should do is figure out what's wrong with the Queen Mary, why people don't want to come to it. I mean, they do, but I'm generalizing. So, what is wrong with the Queen Mary? Why do we not have the full potential being met of the ship's visitation? And then go and fix that. Go in and make the ship super popular, and people will visit it, and then you do the development next to the ship. Because otherwise you're only putting a band-aid over the problem, and the problem will keep persisting. The ship will just keep... the ship will keep decreasing its visitation. It will be forgotten because people are going to focus all on the people, as in the developers, the management, the city will focus on the property next to the ship, and then proceed to neglect the ship because they think that, well, here's the revenue stream, so we're going to focus on the revenue stream, not on the ship. So that's why I always say the ship should be the first thing fixed before they start building, that new development. And by fixed, I mean making it a popular destination before they start developing the land next to it. I think that's how they will fix the issue. So, I'm good, Malibu Company. I can't imagine someone coming for you. Doc, I was trying the ASMR thing, and I realized I can't do it. My apartment's too loud. So, I have too many, things I have, my refrigerator and my computer. My computer makes so much noise, I can't even tell you. You can hear it from across the apartment. So, the apartment's too loud to do ASMR. I already have difficulty doing my own videos because all the noises come into the recording, and I have to isolate the track, and it's just so much work. Thank you, Teresa. Okay, I'm gonna reheat this because I want to refill my cup, but the cup is stone cold. Chris says, what is the Submarine by RMS Queen Mary? That submarine is a Russian Scorpion submarine. It's Foxtrot class. That's really all I can tell you about it. It was brought next to the Queen Mary in 1998. Or 1998 is when the attraction opened, but it was brought next to the Queen Mary in the late 1990s. And the hope was that the two things would work together to be attract tourists. And it did for a short while, but, eventually, the submarine, just like the Queen Mary, the visitation kind of died down a bit. But yeah, that's what the submarine is. It's in very bad condition, and it needs to be removed. Tyler says, I have a Queen Elizabeth II bookmark. Nice. I had this idea of making bookmarks on my channel. Because, I do, art and stuff. So I thought maybe if I, draw or paint the Queen Mary and a few other ships and stuff like that. Or, even locomotives and trains and stuff like that. And put it on bookmarks and I could sell it. That's still an idea I want to do. But I don't know how many people really use bookmarks anymore. I know I do. I use them like crazy. But I don't know how many people really use bookmarks. So. Alright. Let that kind of heat up a little bit. I don't want to pour too much hot water in here because it's already a really light tea. I just want to reheat the cup. There we go. Oh, awesome, Teresa. Good luck. Brandon says, hey, Alex, just wanted to let you know that I really enjoy your vids. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Brandon. RMS Cunard says, how do they get the sub they did? Whoa. How do they get the sub? Did they steal from the Soviets? No. No, the submarine was decommissioned and sold to a, it was sold to a museum on the East Coast. I don't know which one. I don't know where. But on the East Coast. And when that museum no longer wanted the submarine, a private investor purchased it and brought it to Long Beach. So, no, they didn't steal from the Soviets. Tyler says you can count on me for bookmarks. You're welcome, Jay. Cunard says if you sold Queen Mary bookmarks, I would buy them like crazy so I can keep in my Queen Mary merchandise storage. Nice. Yeah, then I might end up doing that. Shouldn't be too hard, but then again, every time I say stuff like that, it ends up being like the worst thing I've ever tried. So, but I do want to do that. Like, that is something I really want to do, so. Yeah. Ozzy says, did the Queen Mary hit the other ship in 1943 or 42? Well, that's just what I was saying, was I don't remember what year it was. It was one of those two, but I don't remember. Sometimes I kind of wish I had a house, so that way I could have like a workshop, like in the garage or something. So that way I could like work on the model train down there, but also so I can make stuff to sell for you guys. Because I was just thinking about those bookmarks. I'm like, oh, you know, like it'd be so cool if I had like one of those laser cutters that, you know, that cuts like wood and stuff like that. I could make like little like thin wooden bookmarks and stuff like that, and that way it's more permanent. Because otherwise the only other way I could think of doing it is by like literally making artwork, printing it on cardstock that is I can get a printing service to print out bookmarks on cardstock, and then I can sell it that way. But otherwise, yeah, I would love to do it like on wood or something. I have friends that have laser cutters, but I don't think there's any way, because they use their laser cutters for their own business. So there's no way that they would just like let me like print all mine on theirs. Especially because like they would charge me like a percentage which is fine. That's totally normal. But, you know, if you can avoid a percentage, then that's even better. You know? So, but they don't even have time for that because they usually do all that stuff on their own. Like they need their printers for their laser cutters and their printers for their businesses. So I don't know. And there's no room in this apartment for a laser cutter or printer. Like, well, there might be. They sell small ones, don't they? They do. They sell really small ones. And it could be put under here when I'm not using it. That's something for me to think about, you guys. I could produce both. I could produce, like, paper ones that have artwork on it, like painted artwork that I've done, and, you know, copies of it. And those could be, like, really cheap ones that I could sell, like, in packs. And then if I bought, like, a laser cutter, like a mini little wood laser cutter, I could make more permanent ones out of wood that I could sell for a little bit more. And, yeah. And it would encourage people to read. So I could even make, like, little postcards. Now, see, now my brain is starting to think. So I'm like, oh, what other stuff could I make, you know? Yeah. Daniel says, hey, Alex, were some parts of Queen Mary used to film Titanic? No. Not a single shot in Titanic was filmed on Queen Mary. Kobe says, what was the difference between the Mauretania and the Lusitania? The difference? There were a lot of differences, but I mean, I'll just say the key one that pops out when you first look at it. The Lusitania had ventilators on the top. They're cowl vents on the top that were trash can shaped with a lid that could, like, slide backwards. But on the Mauretania, they had the traditional cowl vents that are like the horn-shaped things. Those are the most eye-catching differences between the two. But yeah, otherwise, there's a lot of differences. I just don't want to list it all here. It's a long answer. RMS Cunard says, anything associated with Queen Mary I like. Me too. Yeah. Ozzy says, Queen Mary hit the other ship October 2nd, 1942. Oh my gosh. So earlier this month was the 80th anniversary of that? Wow. RMS Cunard says, I wish somebody made a Queen Mary shirt. Yeah. I'll have to be careful, though, what I do make, because certain things, certain images of the Queen Mary are owned still by, like, the city of Long Beach and stuff, so... And then, of course, by Cunard. So I will have to look into it and see what I can do. Gump Happen says, a laser cutter would also be great for the railroad build. Yeah, it would. It certainly would. Brendan Bilby says, when did you take an interest in ocean liners? It only really happened 2 years ago. I went to... Well, I have a video on it, actually. But yeah, if you wanted like a detailed version, I have a video I put out a few days ago called the real reason why I make Queen Mary videos, and in that video I talk about my love of ocean liners and how that started. But basically, the very basics is that I didn't actually like ocean liners until I visited Queen Mary in 2020. And after I came off the ship, I kind of had an interest in ocean liners. And then I started researching the Queen Mary to make videos about it a year later. And during that research, I ran into information about other ocean liners. And that's kind of what kind of sparked my interest. But I do have to specify that I'm not like a generalized, all-encompassing... I don't have like a generalized, all-encompassing love of ocean liners. It's just very specific ocean liners. So some people wonder, like, oh, you know, like, do you love, like, Mauretania too? And I'm like, I really don't know. I don't love all ocean liners. There's certainly some I've run across that I don't like very much. But, you know, the idea of the ocean liner interests me. The idea of what it represents and what it does and what it was for. Teresa Roybal says, how are the bugs? What bugs? Daniel says, hey Alex, I wanted to make a wooden Queen Mary to practice for my King Edward ocean liner. Do you have any simple drawing plans for Queen Mary? Simple? No. No, I don't have any simple drawing plans. I have like blueprints and deck plans, but I've already given those to you. Yeah, I don't have any simple drawings. Yeah. Wow, it is really smoky outside. I can't wait for the rain to come. I love the rainy weather. You know, the rain up here is different than it was in Southern California. Because during the rainy seasons up here, the clouds are so dense, it actually gets really dark in the middle of the day. And I have to have like all the lights on in my apartment like it's nighttime, because it'll be so dark outside. It wasn't like that when I lived in Southern California. You know, like, if it rained, but there was still a lot of daylight coming through the clouds. But yeah, it gets really dark here during the rainy season. Yeah, Daniel, I don't have anything with, like, the general shape of Queen Mary. Chris says, I love ocean liners and battleships. Daniel says, wait, you never gave me some blueprints. I didn't? I could have sworn I gave you 2 things. One was some deck plans. Maybe not all of them, but some of them. And then I gave you a cutaway of the ship which showed the watertight compartments that I highlighted in red. I feel like that was you. Yeah. Oh, it was another guy? Okay. My memory fails me again. Chris says, do you know what the Iowa-class battleships and the Olympic-class ocean liners are about the same size? Really? No, I didn't know that. Brandon says, I know you're busy with video ideas, but I really enjoy your Halloween-themed videos. It would be awesome if you have something in the works. Loved your Haunted Disneyland videos. Yeah, this Friday is going to be my latest video. It's about the vampires of the Ursuline Convent of New Orleans. So in New Orleans, there's a old convent, you know, that nuns had started, and in the early 1700s, it was said that vampires came over from France, and the nuns housed them in the convent, or not housed them necessarily, entombed them into the convent. So that'll be an interesting video that comes out this Friday. The video is almost already completed, so when I'm done with the live stream... Uh-oh. What just happened to my live stream? Okay, well, anyway, looks like everything's fine. But, like I was saying, that video comes out this Friday. It's almost finished. I'm going to finish it after the live stream tonight. So that'll be good. Yeah, and expect that Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Yeah, it was really weird because all of a sudden my screen said like 501 something, and it was like server not found, and it was just like completely, the whole screen was completely gray. I was like, what just happened? Anywho, but yeah. But, you know, there might be a chance that from now on I'll be able to travel more places occasionally. In the local area, that is. Like, you know, within Oregon or Washington. Places like Seattle, even. So I'm going to try to visit different places and film different things. If that's possible. So I especially really want to film the Seattle monorail and the Space Needle to make videos about those. It doesn't really cover what my channel is about, but I think they're still really interesting topics that I really want to discuss. Oh, the smoke is getting to my sinuses. Jeez. Ryan Lorio says, why and how did RMS Aquitania survive the scrapyard in the 30s when some of the older ships were scrapped, like Berengaria, Olympic, Mauretania, and others? Well, that's easy. The Aquitania was really not that old to begin with, and it was a really useful ship, you know. So, Berengaria. Yeah, you know, like when you think about like Mauretania or Olympic, you know, Mauretania 1909, Olympic 1911, they were a few years, you know, older than Aquitania, but even still, Aquitania was still a brand new ship. And when you think about it, Aquitania really didn't have much of a chance to show off, you know, its serviceability till after the First World War. So what was that, like 1919? I'm trying to remember the First World War. I want to say 1919 or 1918. So technically, it was still a relatively new ship. It wasn't that old. It was like 15 years old when they were considering scrapping the other ships. And that's really only like a fraction of the age, the general age that ships can be out on the ocean, which is 40 years. So, yeah, there was no reason to scrap the Aquitania. Daniel says, this winter break I'm going to Mexico by car. A 30-hour drive, of course. My dad's driving and we're staying at hotels, but still, hope I can see my grandparents. Well, good luck, and I hope you enjoy your time. Grandpa's almost 90, wow. Chris says, are there wildfires near where you live with all the smoke? You know, I've checked. There's none near where I live. So we must be getting the smoke from, like, way off in the distance. Like, it must be coming from, like, you know, the middle of the state and then blowing up here. Because I don't see any near where I am. But you'd think it's nearby based off of how, like, how dense the smoke is, you know? you would never guess that it's like hundreds of miles away, you know? Really weird. But yeah, I really want to visit the Queen Mary again. I really miss that ship. I don't know when I'll be able to see it again. It's so weird to think, like, I haven't seen anything. Like, my family, my family, I haven't seen some of my friends, Disneyland, Queen Mary. I haven't seen any of that stuff in now almost 3 years. That's a weird thought for me. Because I've never lived so far away from California at all in my life. I mean, yeah. So it's weird to think, like, I haven't seen, like, my family, my friends, Disneyland or Queen Mary in that long. And it'll probably be longer. It'll probably be a full 3 years at least before I get to see any of those. So, I know if I do go down to Southern California, you know, my family's going to want to have, like, a little bit of a reunion and see me and say hi. And, you know, my friends are going to want to see me, especially Eric, you know. Eric was texting me yesterday, and he's like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in years, and I really miss you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." You know, it's sad. And my other friend Chris, I talk about him all the time on the channel nowadays. Yeah, he saw me earlier this year, both in March and June. Yeah, so that was cool. But we were really looking forward to me going down to Southern California in October, and I would have seen him a third time this year, but that didn't work out. So yeah. Daniel, I'm glad to hear that your grandpa's okay. Yeah, it's always scary when people go through health situations like that. Hello, Jimmy. This is the third time I've said hello to you in the thing. Oh, here's your comments. Here we go. The sad thing is that whenever you make a Cunard tea, it's always late for me, so I usually only stay for a bit. Like right now, it's almost 9 o'clock. Alex, how was your dinner with your sister a couple of days ago? Really, really well. Really nice. Yeah. She made like a roasted chicken, which was really delicious. And then there was a baked potato, or no, not roasted potatoes. Yeah. And creamed spinach. Yeah. She likes making creamed spinach, and frankly, I don't get to have creamed spinach very much in my life. So, and she does it really well. So yeah, and I got to see my brother-in-law, and then my sister's pets, so her cats, and she's got a dog, which some of you guys have seen on my tea time already. I had Freya on the live stream a couple months ago, I think, and she was kind of wandering around the living room. So you guys got to see my sister's dog that one time. So it was nice to see them all again. I think this Friday we're going to go out to dinner somewhere. Don't know yet where, but yeah, I think this Friday we're going to go out to dinner. Chris says, it feels like RMS Queen Mary is like your home. It is kind of like my home. I feel like that. And it's funny because, you know, leaving that final time in January of 2020, it didn't feel like home then. But it was over the course of the last 2 years that I've been researching and talking about the Queen Mary that it really has felt like home. Yeah, the Great Cookie Monster, Chris. Yeah. RMS Cunard says, "Are you looking forward to 2023?" Eh. You know, it's just another year to me. It doesn't make any difference. There's nothing happening in 2023 that I think is really, like, making me wish for 2023 to get here. The Queen Mary will be open by then, but I might not be able to go down there to see it. I am supposed to go to New Orleans in spring. We're hoping for March, but that really depends on if I have the money to do it. I'm hoping I have the money to do it. I also have to... I don't need my passport to go to New Orleans, but I do need my passport to go to the UK. And the UK is... I'm hoping the UK trip will happen either in 2023 or 2024 if I have the money. So, I'm still trying to save up for that. But the UK trip will take a long time. A lot of people have been asking me, oh, you know, how was the UK trip? Like, they think I already went because so much time has passed, but I have to remind them, like, I don't have the money yet. Like, I'm still saving up the money for the UK trip. And so we'll just have to see, like, you know, we'll have to see when I have the money for it. So, but yeah, the New Orleans trip is meant to help boost the channel because I need new content to show people. And, you know, and I think that, you know, there's so much history there that people would really love to learn more about it. And, you know, especially with my own brand of doing things. So the hope is that I can make a lot more content based off of New Orleans, as well as other places too, you know, like Washington and, you know, Seattle, all that, you know. But the hope is to kind of propel the channel forward early next year and get a lot more money saved up so that way I can do the UK trip as soon as possible. The UK trip will be the next big boost for the channel. And if the UK trip goes really well, then maybe I'll plan another trip specifically for other places in Europe, like Germany, Switzerland, Italy, more France, maybe Spain. You know, like, it'd be kind of cool to travel other places, film more stuff, make more history videos. But it all hinges on the New Orleans trip in spring. And then after that, it'll all hinge on the UK trip. And then that'll depend on what happens to the channel in the future. I was telling my friend Chris, what usually boosts channels is when the host of the channel travels. People just love traveling stuff. Anything that has to do with filming stuff for the channel when you're traveling, people love it. So I plan to really make the best out of it. Live streams, vlogs, history videos, documentaries, everything. Riker Williams says, what would happen if they tried to fire engines up on Queen Mary? It's not possible. They don't have any boilers. They don't have any, you know, any machinery left besides the aft. They don't have any machinery left besides the aft engine room left. So there's no way to power up the engines. But let's just say if they hooked steam up to the engines, likely nothing would happen. Because the engines have been sitting for so long, they've probably seized and possibly even rusted in place. So it's just really nothing would happen, to be totally honest. Yeah. Same thing happens to a car. If you let a car sit for long enough, the whole engine will seize up. So that's why, like, when I watch, like, the movie Jurassic World and those kids started up that Jeep after, like, it's sitting there for, like, 22 years, I was like, are you kidding me? It's like, that engine would not start. Thomas Brooks says, Alex, where do you find those ocean liner prints? They are very nice. This one was a gift to me. I don't know where to find it, so it was just a gift to me. The other print that sometimes shows up next to me, I found that on eBay. So pretty much anything related to ocean liners, just look on eBay. Any questions you have about where you can buy something ocean liner related, just check eBay. eBay is where you can find everything. RMS Cunard says, do you like Europa's design? I don't even really know what Europa looks like. I'm not very well versed in it, but... Alright, folks. So, time for me to say goodbye. I do have groceries being delivered now, so I do have to put those away. But anyway, today's Wednesday. Friday will be the Vampires of the Ursuline Convent, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Be there or be square. You guys will really like that video. It's a good little Halloween thing and some history included. As well as Sunday will be the next tea time. So yeah, thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.